Jeffrey, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Jeffrey, I'm really honored for you to be here today because when we're tackling a very difficult topic about how a lot of people who are elderly essentially get scammed. What are some of the tips that you have about that?
Well, it's important for the elderly to be particularly aware of it. There is an estimate that by the National Council of Aging that $36.5 billion a year, that's billion with a B, are lost through financial fraud and financial abuse for the elderly. So it's very important for them to be aware, particularly on the ways that people will try to get their money or will try to get information which leads them to lose their money. And the first thing for the elderly to be aware of is to watch for raising anxiety or deadlines or pressure that you got to do something immediately or you're going to suffer a loss.
Right.
Because part of this is psychological. As a matter of fact, a lot of it is psychological. And what these people are trying to do is raise your anxiety, raise your fear level so high that you're going to do something without really thinking it through or without following the tips that I'm going to give you. And that's going to get you in trouble. So the first thing when you get a call, when you see an email, when you get a text, is to take a breath, take a couple minutes, let that blood pressure go down a little bit, and then go back and think and look really at what's going on.
Yeah, and Jeffrey, this probably connects with your own business too. Like, how do you have these conversations with a loved one without it coming across in a way that makes them very defensive right away to say, no, that would never happen to me? How do you have those difficult conversations with a loved one of yours?
It's very difficult, but one thing to say is certainly, look, better that we talk about it and we know, even if it's something that you really do know, because a lot of smart people get very get pulled in to these kinds of scams. I know somebody very, very bright, former attorney, who ended up actually going to a Best Buy to buy gift cards to give to a scammer because the scammer convinced him that in order to pay for a service that he really didn't need, but it drawn him along so much that he actually went to buy $500 worth of gift cards from Best Buy. This is a former high-powered attorney, and he was just taken in, and it seemed reasonable until he was doing something not reasonable. And that's what scammers like to do, by the way. They want to get paid by gift cards or by cryptocurrency because you can't trace it and you can't get it back.
Right. You would think that when you're kind of listening to these things that no one would be like, oh, that's something that I would do. But you're right, because they create a sense of panic and they actually have a lot of personal information about these people. And we fielded several phone calls from potential victims that says, oh, I think my niece or my granddaughter has been arrested and they want me to pay by an Apple gift card to, the police down at the Cape Cod. And they know a lot of information because they knew that the person's relative was actually down at the Cape on that day and they weren't picking up the phone. So I made a couple phone calls on this. Is no, they have not had that arrest down there. It's not something you need to worry about. And it sounded suspicious anyways. They wanted me to double check and I was happy to do so for free. And just to give them the peace of mind to say, no, that's not what was going on in those situations. But it can be worse that they say, oh, your family member is incapacitated because they got into this horrific car accident. They're at the hospital. And I think it's because of that panic that you were talking about that really puts them in a situation that's very difficult for them to process things logically.
And the person who called you took that extra minute, said, wait a second, this doesn't sound right. I better check it out before I do something, and then avoided a lot of problems. The other thing to remember is a lot of times these scammers are playing the long game. They know that if they don't get you today or tomorrow, they could get some personal information, do some tracking, and see if they could get you a little bit later. So even if you say, well, how could they possibly know that my niece is down in the Cape or whatever they're doing? they're playing the long game, and there are ways to get the information.
So Jeffrey, tell us about you. This is obviously not your day job. You're trying to help people as much as you can, but when should people be calling you?
People should be calling me because I'm a daily money manager. And what I do is I help people with their personal financial needs to make sure that everything essential for their personal finances is done correctly and on time. So bill paying, budgeting, tracking and watching your accounts and insurance claims, things like that. And for a lot of people, that's either very difficult to do, or they had a spouse who did it, who has passed away, or they're taking care of another relative, or it's just so time consuming. And it can be very time consuming. It's just so time consuming that they need somebody who's trained and who's able to take a look at this and make sure that everything that goes on with their personal finances is in good shape.
And that makes complete sense. If for nothing else, for you to gather the necessary documents, prepare their taxes on a yearly basis, and to make sure that the right documentation is going to the right places, that can be very difficult for even people who have experience in the financial world.
Absolutely. So when the accountant, and I'm not an accountant, I don't do the taxes, but when your accountant sends that packet that's this big and says, I need all this information and I need it in order, to gather that throughout the process at the last minute is very difficult. If we've been working on that all the way through the previous year and making sure that everything's in order, it's easy and you don't have to worry about it at all.
Jeffrey, the thing I like about you the most, the people that have sent you, is that what people end up saying is, I really enjoy having Jeffrey around because it allows me to be a family member again. And what they mean about that is not every conversation that they're having is an aggravated, frustrating type of situation, and they can enjoy spending time together. It's not, I'm coming over to look at the gas bill or trying to pay your taxes or trying to do whatever to gather for you. And it allows them to spend quality time, which is important because that is what family is meant for. And it's very difficult when people have full-time jobs, trying to take care of their parents, have children of their own. And now they're also trying to really do a full-time job of taking care of the finances. It makes it tremendously difficult.
It does. And sometimes having an outside person in to do that can help and ease some of the pressure on a relationship. And I know this as a former practicing attorney, and also I happen to be a rabbi. So I've dealt with families in all kinds of situations, and anything that you can do to relieve some of that pressure and to make it more about care and concern and about enjoying times with your loved ones, so much the better.
So one final follow-up question to that. What are some of the signs when people should start calling you, right? Maybe mom and dad were dealing with this stuff. Grandpa, grandma was dealing with their own finances for a long time. Are there some indications that it's time to call you and kind of loop you in to do an assessment to see if it's time to kind of bring on a professional?
Sure, absolutely. When it feels overwhelming, when it feels like all you're doing is talking about the bill that was late, when it feels like it just is too much pressure to keep going on in that way, when you see stacks of mail that are sitting in places unopened, or when someone says, gee, I wish I didn't have to worry about this as much. I wish I could just relax and take it easy and have it done and know that it's in safe hands. That's the time to call me.
Jeffrey, I was going to ask you about the seasons and what you like about the seasons the most, but now that we're on the topic about spending quality time with loved ones, what's one of the things that you just absolutely love to spend time with, maybe someone in your life, that people can also say, oh yeah, I also do that with my relative, my dad, mom, kid, whatever. Tell us a time that you just enjoy spending time with family.
Well, one of the things that I love the best is just sitting out in my backyard with my wife and my two miniature long-haired dachshunds. I have a 4.5-year-old miniature long-haired dachshund named Mischief, and I just got a 13-week-old puppy named Mayhem. So to watch Mischief and Mayhem in the backyard, sniffing around, having a good time together, that's just the best thing that you could possibly, imagine.
That's great. Thanks for coming on today. I hope you come back soon.
Thanks a lot, Jason.